In the misty jungles where Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar meet, an empire was born. Not of kings, not of governments, but of opium. A land so remote that even the law dared not enter. A triangle of fog, greed, and blood, where fields of white poppies fed an empire of heroin. For decades, this corner of Southeast Asia supplied most of the world's heroin. It turned peasants into farmers, farmers into smugglers, and smugglers into warlords. This is the true story of the Golden Triangle. Hey, how you doing? I'm Richard. If you're new here, I cover true crime stories, from money laundering CEOs to international arms dealers. So, if that's your thing, feel free to subscribe. But now, on to today's story. The end of World War II did not bring peace to Asia. It brought collapse, confusion, and opportunity. Old empires were dying, and new powers were born. Colonial officials who once ruled with maps and rifles now scrambled to hold what was left. During the war, traditional opium routes from India and the Middle East were cut, so the French in Indochina turned to the hills for help. They encouraged the Hmong farmers of Laos to grow more poppies to keep the opium flowing. By the time the war ended, opium had taken root deep in the mountains of Burma, Laos, and Thailand. Then came the Great Shift in China. In 1949, Mao Zedong's communist forces won the Civil War. They wiped out opium within their borders and forced millions of addicts into treatment. But the defeated nationalist soldiers of the Kuomintang fled south. They crossed into Burma's Shan state, thousands of men armed, desperate, and homeless. They needed money to survive and power to rebuild. They found both in the red resin of the poppy. They grew it, traded it, and soon controlled it. And under the quiet protection of anti-communist allies, they turned the borderlands into a drug fortress. Burma's mountains were perfect for their new business, remote and wild, with no government strong enough to intervene. Opium caravans snaked through the fog, guarded by militias and bribed officials. From these secret fields, the drug moved downriver toward Thailand and beyond. Money poured in and governments looked away. By the mid-1950s, the Golden Triangle had taken shape. It was no longer a backwater, it was a factory. A hidden engine turning flowers into fortune, and fortune into power. From the smoke of this new trade emerged men who ruled like kings, none more powerful than Khun Sa, born in the Shan Hills to a Chinese father and Shan mother. Khun Sa was raised in war. He trained with both the Kuomintang and the Burmese army, learning to play all sides. By his 20s, he commanded his own militia, and by his 30s, he was already a name whispered across the borderlands. In the 1960s, he made a deal with the Burmese government. He would fight communist insurgents in exchange for the freedom to move opium. The deal made him rich and untouchable. His men protected the poppy fields, his chemists refined the opium into pure heroin, and his convoys moved by the hundreds through the jungle. Soon, his product was everywhere. In the alleys of Hong Kong, in the nightclubs of Bangkok, in the veins of New York addicts. Khun Sa became the center of the Golden Triangle's economy. His private army grew to more than 20,000 soldiers, armed with rifles, artillery, and anti-aircraft guns. He ruled from Ban Hin Tak, a jungle fortress on the Thai border. It was a kingdom where his word was law. He paid off generals and politicians, he funded militias, and built his empire on blood and power. To the Shan people, he was a hero, promising freedom from Burmese rules. To the world, he was the opium king. Even the CIA and Thai intelligence at times found him useful in their war against communism. By the 1980s, Khun Sa controlled half the heroin on Earth. He was not just a drug lord, he was a statesman of the shadows, a man who sold addiction to the planet and called it business. Around him, other warlords fought for scraps. Khun Sa outplayed them all. He bribed them, betrayed them, or destroyed them. And when the United States placed a $2 million bounty on his head, he laughed. He made more than that, every month. Under his rule, the jungle was not just a battlefield, it was an economy. Villages that obeyed him survived. Those that resisted disappeared. For nearly 20 years, Khun Sa was untouchable, a ghostly monarch in a land without law. The heroin trade that began in the jungle did not stay there. It spread like smoke around the globe. During the Vietnam War, American soldiers discovered it. Cheap, pure, and everywhere. By 1971, more than a third of US troops had used heroin. The war became a delivery system, and the addicts brought their habits home. The same planes that carried supplies and weapons sometimes carried opium on the return trip. Local militias funded by the CIA grew and traded poppy resin to finance their battles. Officially denied, quietly tolerated. At the same time, the Corsican underworld in Marseille refined Golden Triangle opium into heroin. They shipped it to the United States through a network known as the French Connection. Soon, addiction spread across America, from New York to Chicago, Philadelphia to Los Angeles. In Asia, Thai generals and politicians became middlemen, moving the drug through Bangkok's ports. Hong Kong triads handled money laundering and global logistics. Their influence stretched into Europe, Australia, and the Americas. Billions of dollars in profit needed a home. Banks in Singapore and Hong Kong welcomed the money. Hotels, casinos, and shipping companies became fronts for laundering. Even Myanmar's ruling elite found ways to profit. By the 1980s, drug cash was fueling construction projects in Yangon and paying off entire branches of government. Western banks, too, failed to ask questions. Dirty money flowed quietly through the system, feeding economies that pretended not to notice. The Golden Triangle thrived because the world let it. Cold War politics protected it more than mountains ever could. To Washington and Paris, these warlords were the lesser evil. They fought communism and kept the region in check, but the cost was devastating. Heroin made in forgotten valleys was destroying lives in the streets of the West. But no empire lasts forever, even one built on poppies. By the early 1990s, the winds had changed. The Cold War was over, and the old alliances were worthless. The United States wanted the heroin kingpins gone. Thailand had begun a campaign to eradicate opium farming, replacing it with corn and tea. Heroin production retreated deeper into Myanmar's wild borderlands. At the same time, Afghanistan's fields in the Golden Crescent were booming. A new rival was taking the crown. Khun Sa saw the future closing in. His enemies surrounded him, and his allies abandoned him. In 1996, he surrendered to the Burmese military. No gunfire, no arrest, just a deal. He handed over his army, and in return kept his wealth and his freedom. He moved to Yangon, where he lived in comfort, investing in construction and mining. The government declared victory. The world moved on. But the heroin trade did not die. It simply evolved. In the same hills where the poppies once bloomed, new drug labs appeared. This time, they were not growing flowers. They were cooking chemicals. Methamphetamine was the new gold. Cheap, fast, and easy to make. No farmers, no seasons, no limits. The United Wa State, army once Khun Sa's ally, became the new cartel. They built fortified compounds and mass-produced meth pills and crystal. Soon, the trade was larger than ever before. By the 2000s, meth had replaced heroin as Asia's deadliest drug. And the profits were staggering. Modern syndicates like the Sam Gore Network, led by Tse Chilab, turned the trade into a global industry worth billions each year. By 2023, the Golden Triangle was back in the headlines. Over 1 billion pills seized, and still, the flow never slowed. War returned to Myanmar. The poppies came back. By 2024, it was the world's top opium producer. Again, same hunger, same curse, new king, wearing the same crown.